Hey guys, it's Klinger with Vital MX. I'm here with Scott Gustafson, and we have a Moto to off-road bike build today. And basically, we have a 2020 RM-Z250, and we wanted to see if we can make it a little bit more off-roady, cross-country bike. Before we get into the bike itself, a little bit about Scott. He worked at Dirt Bike magazine as he did the column Mr. Know-It-All, and then after that we both worked at Dirt Rider magazine, him doing the Dr. Dirt column and all those videos. So Scott, what did we do to the bike?
Well, basically it just kind of came up with the idea of the bike. I'd been working for a pro team a while ago and decided to buy one of our bikes, and I bought one of our enduro cross bikes, and essentially it turned out to be a fantastic vet motocross bike, and it also gave me the option to ride off-road if I wanted to. So many times people buy bikes, it's not necessarily the right bike for them, and you can do a few simple, inexpensive things to help make it better. So, in this case, we made it so we could ride it off-road.
Starting with the suspension, what did you do to make it, because, in stock form, RM-Z, not really the suspension. Overall, the chassis of the bike is pretty stiff. A lot of people said that the whole bike itself is stiff, but something we could do, or you could do, was the suspension.
That was probably the biggest thing. The Suzuki's super stiff. Fork springs have a 51 kilogram rating, so we got some lighter fork springs from Race Tech. Suzuki builds in a lot of height in their fork. So in this particular case, I was able to slide them up, and the reason I did that was because I shortened the shock 5 millimeters. By doing that, I cut the rear end of the bike down by about 15 millimeters. Also revalved it so that it was more forgiving, and yet you could still take it on the motocross track, you could still do all the jumps, you could still over jump, and the bike could save you there. But when you did go off-road and hit those small hard edge bumps, everything was a lot smoother. So essentially with the power, with the Suzuki, you don't have a lot of options. So ideally, I probably would have put a big bore kit on this bike, but that wasn't available to me. We did get a high compression piston supplied by JGR, and we mated that to a get ignition. And what's so nice about this ignition, it has a Wi-Fi pickup, and you can change the mapping with your phone just like the Yamaha.
You could put 2 maps in there at a time, right?
Exactly. So you can put the maps that get supplies, or you can create your own custom maps for whatever you're doing. So it's just a nice all-around system. I think it's like on par or better than the Yamaha phone system. So it's very, very good.
I think for this build in particular, having a bike that like a strictly off-road bike or strictly moto bike, it is nice to have like maybe a wet and a dry setting, or but having a bike that's kind of for the track and the trails. There's 2 maps in here that you put in there that I really noticed a big difference. There's kind of a traction map. I tried that on the trails, and I really enjoyed the way that the power was made. It still has a torquiness, but it's a mellower roll-on. Coming out of turns, especially when it's dry and loose out here, a lot easier to stay on the single track, not blow out of turns, not get out of control. I did put in the more aggressive map just to see how that would feel. And it's funny because it sounds and kind of feels more like you're riding faster, but it's just a harder hit, which makes it better for the motocross track, but less, user-friendly for trail riding.
Yeah, and this is true. So many times we think we need more power, and we actually don't. We just need controllable power. But the nice thing about the ignition system, it allows you to fine-tune that, and you can change it for conditions. So, once again, I'm really impressed with it.
I mean, you're kind of a 50-50 rider. You like off-road, you like moto.
Yeah.
How'd you like the bike on the track?
On the track, it did everything I needed to. I don't get out to the track much at all anymore, so I just really need a forgiving bike, something that's super easy to ride, and I was able to produce that with our build here. Off-road, just to be able to take the edge off this really stiff bike, that was really the key here. So again, that part of the build I like too, just in doing the suspension. So the revalve really helped there.
Yeah, I would say there are pros and cons to this bike and the way that it's set up. Definitely the pros, like I rode the main track at Kauai today, and I didn't have any problems at all. Like I had the more aggressive map. It was easy to ride still. It wasn't out of control. with the lowered suspension, I didn't find like, oh, I need that extra half inch, you know, that you don't notice that when you're riding. I did notice maybe it handling a little better because of the comfort. Like I was able to push it into corners without it getting, you know, bouncy and skittery feeling. It's more planted. Kind of the cons of that is on the trail, I want to say the white and orange bikes, and even more of the Shercos and Betas, the more enduro specific bikes themselves that have built that way, might have a little bit more intuitive turning, a little bit easier to turn in, to kind of just lean with your knees, and a lighter feel. This bike, it doesn't feel heavy, but it does have a little bit more of a reciprocating mass feel when you're trying to like pick through some tight trees and bushes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's something, you know, you've got a fixed chassis. You can't change too much with it. I couldn't even buy different motor mounts for this bike, so I ended up drilling a few of the engine mounts. I changed the torque on almost all of the mounts just to get a little more flex to it. And but once again, that's one thing that's fixed. You can't change that, and you know, maybe not compete with some of the steel framed bikes in that particular setup.
Yeah, I would say, at least for me, this would be an excellent idea for one if you already have a Suzuki. If you already have this bike and you're thinking maybe you want to do some more off-roading, look into this setup. Definitely, it makes it way more comfortable to ride off-road. If you're looking to get a new bike, you can maybe find these for a good deal. You can maybe find a couple years old that's slightly used, and then you can put a little money into it, really set it up for you. I think for me, not so much extreme enduro or hard enduro kind of rock crawly stuff. It's not really set up for that, but these trails that are more flowy, more open, Grand Prix style riding, that I could ride that all day on this bike. It was really fun. I could really see myself racing a Big Six or anything like that. And the last, I know we harp on Suzuki for this, but the last thing about this build, really hard to start.
Absolutely.
It's
absolutely
a high compression piston. It's the JGR piston.
Yeah.
We got from JGR. It does increase the compression, which is already pretty high, and man, it takes a kick to get it lit up. And there's not really any options that you have for that, but that is something to think about if you're going to be doing more of a start and stop, harder style riding. So overall, hope you enjoyed this build. I really like this bike. I know Scott's having a good time. We might do some off-road racing with it. We might do some other off-road projects. So if you're on our YouTube channel, check vitalmx.com for more stories and videos. If you are on vitalmx.com, please go to our YouTube channel, click subscribe. Thanks for watching.